All right, welcome on in, everybody, to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, however you are consuming this podcast. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Big shout out to our sponsor for today's show, as always, the law office of William Mattar. Heard in a car, call William Mattar. 444-4444. Call William Mattar today to get the compensation. And I lost my mic for like 2 seconds. Anyway, make sure you're getting that compensation that you deserve from the office of William Mattar. This is our Tuesday audio podcast. On the video side, we're live for a second straight night here, Monday night, 9 p.m. I'm always in a good mood when I get a chance to talk to one of my favorite people in the sports media, one of my favorite people just in general, my good friend, Joe Yerdon, of course, NHL writer, covering specifically the Buffalo Sabres. And what a time, man. This is, the Sabres are cooking. You're cooking. This is actually your third media appearance here of Monday. Very much in demand. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, it's been a busy day. It's hey, you sweep the Florida trip and win 3 in a row coming out of the Olympic break, and now everybody's in the playoff grind. And man, oh man, we've been saying this now for 2 months. The Sabres are hot, man.
I know it's. I'm still getting used to it a little bit. I'm still getting used to the Sabres being good. And I'm also getting used to having conversations with you specifically when the Sabres are good, just because we've had so many through the years when this team was anything but good. So here's what I want to do. So today we'll spend some time talking about the proverbial goalposts. I think they're starting to move a little bit, and that's a good thing for the Sabres. We're going to hit on that. The trade deadline, Friday, 3 p.m., a big game for, well, all the games are big now, of course, but Vegas is coming to town Tuesday night. Most people will be listening to this sometime on Tuesday. Jack Eichel, the arena is going to be charged up. Tage Thompson's going to get honored. You know how that's going to play out. Looking to see what the reaction is going to be for the enemy. We'll get into all that. I want to steal a moment here to ask you a football question, a Bills question. I tweeted this today, dying to know your response. If people want to chime in the live or at any point afterwards, I'd love to hear what they think too. And I think I'm going to ask every guest I have the same question for the duration of this week. It's not so much a question, it's a hypothetical that I want to run by you, Joe. Mm-hmm. All right? So there's been pretty consistent in starting here on Monday, heavy rumors. Albert Breer, I believe, is reporting that there is a good chance that the Vegas Raiders will trade Max Crosby possibly as early as this week. Obviously, Max Crosby, one of the premier edge rushers in the NFL. Here's my hypothetical that I present to you and to anyone else. If you're the Bills and you could trade for Max Crosby, which, by the way, I should have said this too. The Bills were on the list that Albert Breer named of at least teams that are keeping tabs on him, okay? Mm-hmm. Based on all that, you're Brandon Beane. You have the opportunity. It's going to be a first-round pick, and it's going to be more, okay? We'll put the compensation part out there now. It's going to be a first-round. You're not going to have a first-round pick, and you're probably going to have to give out more. You will have to give out more, okay? So you give up a first-round pick. You could trade for Max Crosby, but if you do that, the most that you can do, and you got to stick to the rules, okay? The most that you can do is re-sign Brandon Cooks, and that's your veteran wide receiver ad, and you can use the draft. You're not going to have a day one pick, though, so it's going to be sometime on night 2 of the draft. So either round 2 or round 3. So you're going to get Max Crosby. That's your big ticket item. And people are going to be like, well, you still sign Evans, you can still sign Rushy. No. That's not the rules. The rules are you get Max Crosby for a first and other stuff. You're going to re-sign Brandon Cooks, who had his moments last year, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have a day 2 wide receiver pick. I'm still going to allow you to pick a wide receiver in the second or third round. But those are the rules. If you're Brandon Beane, are you doing that? If you're a Bills fan, and you're not, you're a Bills watcher, are you doing that, Joe? Are you going to take Max Crosby, but now you can't go try to get A.J. Brown or some big-ticket wide receiver, Mike Evans, whoever it may be? You got to settle for Brandon Cooks and a rookie, but you're going to get Max Crosby. What would you do?
I get Max Crosby.
Thank you. We're in the minority. I don't want to lead you too much with my hypothetical. Elaborate a little bit, but I'll tell you this. We are very much, based on what I saw today, in the minority. Go ahead.
Well, I read Lance Lasowski's story about, how he felt the Bills should use their first round pick. And he had singled out I believe he singled out like a DN or an edge guy. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And I was like, also the fans probably hate the garbage out of that too, because everybody they want a wide out. And I get that. Mm-hmm. Max Crosby is a game changer. And, for as good as a lot of parts of the Bills defense was and has been, they haven't had that absolute like murder beast, pass rusher. Bosa did okay last year at times.
Not when it mattered.
Not when it mattered. Von Miller had his moments before he blew out his knee.
Not when it mattered.
Not when it mattered. Crosby, now granted, Crosby hasn't, really been in those situations with the Raiders. Obviously.
Hasn't had a chance.
Oh, but like that dude's skills and his numbers are just like through the roof. Great. And if you get if you got to burn your first rounder, which is what, pick 30?
26 right
26? Now. Okay. Like,
and more. But,
it's more. But like if you're burning like a low first round pick and maybe you got to give up next year's first too. Mm-hmm. I'm doing it because your pick is low. You're banking on your scouts, and you've done better with your picks later rounds anyways. So whatever, get rid of the debate. Like just everybody's gonna have to try to have been trying to calm themselves down into thinking maybe they're actually going to draft a receiver this year. And I was like, I don't think they're going to do that because the guy pulling the trigger is still the same guy on the draft. So he's going to want defense, and it is an area of need. So yeah, if Crosby's available to you and you can make that trade happen, I say do it. But I mean, if it means having to live with the same whiteout crew, maybe it's a come to Jesus moment for everybody to be like, hey, this is on us now. We gotta be better. Everybody's got to show up, and no more screwing around. That goes for like Keon Coleman, but for everybody, like Cooks showed some signs last year, whatever. If you're leaning on him to be your number one, that's tough. But for Keon Coleman's, like if he snaps around and becomes a guy again,
if he grows up,
all that stuff, it introduces way more ifs to the passing game. But you also have a freak show quarterback who's made the most of all of that already. Now, if it makes Allen mad that you'd make that trade, then don't make the trade. You don't want Allen pulling all the strings on making your decisions, but also I got a feeling Allen would be okay with having possibly the best edge rusher in the league joining the team and making the whole team better because of it.
100%. I agree with you. Again, we're in the minority because a lot of fans did not agree. I want to be clear, too. I don't want the Bills to not do anything significant at wide receiver. I want them to address wide receiver. I want to be really clear about that. Joe, I did a show last Friday. Literally, the title was Why the Bills Should Not Re-Sign Brandon Cooks. I'm not a fan of it, okay?
Yeah.
And I'd like to see them draft a wide receiver in the first round, potentially. But there's two reasons why I arrive where I agree with you. Number one, maybe it's fool's gold, but I do believe that if in this scenario where you can't upgrade because of the scenario we portrayed, I'd like to believe that Josh Palmer could stay healthier and be better in year 2. I would like to think that Keon Coleman grows up and matures and gets at least somewhat more consistent in year 3. And I would like to think that with a full training camp, in fairness to Brandon Cooks, he did get here very late in the season, like November last season, with a full off season, maybe get some better chemistry. I've never known Brandon Cooks, at least from my experience of following him, I never knew him to be a guy who drops key passes a lot like he did for the Buffalo Bills. So that's part of it. But the number one stat to me that I cannot get past, and I'm not saying it's automatically the number one thing, because we can go back to that Bills-Denver's game, and listen, the Bills turned the ball over 5 times. If they turn the ball over 3 times, they probably win the game by 10 points still, right? There's no denying that. Josh Allen played good in moments, and he had some horrible decisions and mistakes that cost this team. But the number one stat that I just can't get over is this. Bo Nix threw 46 passes, and he was sacked 0 times. When you got to have it, and this has been a staple of the Bills' defense, especially, at least under Sean McDermott, they look good during the regular season. They'll look good in the wild card round. But when elimination games come, the defense just folds. They never, ever make that big defensive play. They needed one big defensive play, even though, again, Josh ain't going to carry you every game. Sometimes you got to pick him up, and the defense didn't do that. The year before in Kansas City, make a stop or two, you're going to the Super Bowl. We could say that like 3 or 4 times, 13 seconds, of course. That goes without saying as well. So it's maybe not the sexy thing, the more popular thing, but go get me a prominent, proven, and not necessarily even be Max Crosby, somebody like him. Give me, if I could get a big ticket and get a choice, give me a guy who's going to bring Bo Nix or Drake May or Patrick Mahomes down with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter when you got to have a stop, because it's not Joey Bosa, it's not Greg Rizzo, it's not Von Miller, it's not Leonard Floyd, and we could keep going and on. And you know what I'm saying? It's people don't agree with us, though. I'm telling you, I was getting dragged a little bit on social media today.
I think Crosby's such a difference maker, though, where if it's you can have Fitz or an AJ Brown, I think you go. I mean, that's a lot tougher. That's a lot tougher if both guys are on the table. That's one where you're just like, oh boy, what are we doing here? Like this is hard. But I think AJ Brown's kind of a messy guy. Like that's a whole lot of drama.
A little risky, potential drama.
It's got to be with a lot of receivers. But I mean, Jesus, Crosby's insanely good, and if that guy's available to you and you have doubts about landing an AJ Brown or if there's somebody else that they've identified that they could get, I honestly don't know that Mike Evans is going to leave Tampa, really, to be
when push comes to shove. I don't know. I think you might be right. Tampa's
still a really good team. That's a very winnable division, and he's been there forever, and like he's the guy. But I mean, if you can get Crosby and that price doesn't kill you to get him, man, oh man, that's really hard to say no to, because he is an absolute difference maker on the rushing the passer on defense. He is a freak, nasty guy.
And the last thing I'll say about that too, then we'll move on to some hockey, is I said you can get a receiver in the second round. You can get a good receiver in round 2 of the draft as well. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great receivers. A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Pickens. Plenty of these guys that are being rumored, in trade rumors and things like that, they're second-round picks. So, yeah, I'm with that. Real quick, I know we're live on the video side and shit, and like I should be talking to the audience and not to Joe Yerdon specifically, but if you get a chance, because I'm going to bring this up. I forgot to tell you beforehand. If you got your phone handy, retweet this out. I completely forgot to do that. If you can. If you can't, not a big deal while I introduce this next segment. It's on my timeline. Anyway, Mike Hardo on the live chat. Let me read this, because now we're going to get into some hockey. Just 10 minutes ago, I was thinking about the old Sabres song, we're going to win that cup, we're going to win that Stanley Cup, man. I haven't thought about that song in at least 20 years. Well, that's because the good times are rolling right now. Joe, so I noticed, and you were at the arena, for today. There's some, stuff that we're going to talk about too, but saw scouts. Like, this associate GM is in up the road in Toronto right now. Maybe doing a little bit of scouting, maybe a little Rasmus Ristolainen watching. I mean, we'll talk trade deadline more later, but I kind of want to ask you about that. It's pretty interesting. And again, the Sabres being in attendance as potential sellers is just not something I'm used to either. But let's just say that they're probably watching multiple guys. But if that's one of the guys we're watching, is that somebody, a reunion with Rasmus, is that something that Sabres fans should be interested in?
His name has come up a lot since the Olympics ended, and he played really well at the Olympics. He looked every bit of the kind of nasty, hard-hitting defenseman that we've seen in the past from him. And he's a guy that's finally healthy. And to me, like, identifying the area that they're looking for, somebody else to play in the third pair, I think is correct. I think that's a position where they're absolutely looking to make an addition and improve the depth there and make things a little bit better on that third pair so they can play him, a few more minutes, so you're not totally wearing out your top four. I just don't know that Risto is the guy, just because of the handedness. Because you're talking, a right-handed shot defenseman. You've already got Kesselring, who's a right-handed shot defenseman. Now, unless you're going to be kind of breaking up, Power and Byram and like putting a righty with each of those guys and kind of splitting that load a little bit, even though Power and Byram have been awesome together, which would be kind of a wild move to make here with 20 some games to go. Playing a righty with a righty. I mean, they're playing lefties with lefties all over the place, and it's working out. Granted, you have elite defensemen there that are playing on their offhand side. Darlene loves playing the right side, and whether it's Power or Byram that slides over on their offhand side, they've done well with it. So in this case, with two righties, Kesselring's been trying to get his game back, injuries and all that stuff. And if he's made mistakes in games, it's crimes of passion where he's trying too hard. He wants to make a big play, he wants to, do the right thing. And, mistakes like that, I think you don't like to see them, but you can live with them. I think if you have him and Risto together, I mean, it's ferocious. Those are two guys that love to hit, that love to mix it up, that love to get nasty in the corners and all that stuff. And that's the kind of playoff sort of attitude you need. I don't like the mix though. Like it's just something about that where you've got a guy on their offhand side, either guy, doesn't matter. I don't like that. Now, granted, you're only playing them 10 to 15 minutes a game tops, but I don't know. It would be a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I would be tickled pink to have Risto back here and in a situation where he was here when things were lean, really, really lean. Yeah. And if he comes back here for a playoff run and he's becoming he plays the way he did in the Olympics in the playoffs, that's a lot of fun. And I like that a lot. The other interesting guy though in that game is Oliver Ekman-Larsson for Toronto. Won a cup with Florida, a guy who's been around for a while, obviously played for a ton of years in Arizona. And he's a guy who's came up as like a puck moving, smooth skating, sort of an offensive defenseman, but his defensive game's gotten a lot better. Plays with a little bit more edge now. He's a veteran, so like you kind of got to do those things, but he's a lefty shot. I think almost positive he's a lefty shot. If I'm wrong, feel free to roast me in the chat, everybody. That's fine. You can roast me for other reasons anyway. So, but I think that makes for a more sensible mix. Now, the idea of Toronto and Buffalo making a trade is crazy, especially because it would be Toronto selling off and Buffalo, giving up, whatever picks to make it happen. But to me, that makes a little bit more sense because you're not talking about having Metza, who's played great on his offhand side, or playing Jacob Bryson there, was playing well, but was struggled a little bit before the Olympic break. I think that's the guy that makes a little bit more sense to target, but it's just I think the idea of a Risto homecoming is so fun for everybody and heartwarming. Honestly, like genuinely heartwarming to bring to have if he came back here for a playoff run, I think people would absolutely go bonkers for it.
Sure. And by the way, I like the way Metz has been playing lately too.
Yeah.
He's growing. He's definitely growing on me. You mentioned Owen Power. Let me ask you this. I feel like with every organization and any team in sports, there's always that what's the term I'm looking for? Whooping boy.
Yeah.
Somebody who's going to get criticized, sometimes fairly, sometimes overboard, sometimes straight up unfairly, no matter what. Joe Brady, I feel like, was that guy as offensive coordinator for the Bills. Anytime the Bills made a mistake, if a bubble screen didn't work, if it works, nobody says something. If it doesn't work, it's Joe Brady's fault. I don't need to lay all that out. You know exactly what I'm saying. I feel like Owen Power is kind of that guy right now on the Buffalo Sabres. I want to circle back to the New Jersey game because I did a live show right after with my buddy Steve Bermel. He did a great job. Mm-hmm. And we watched the game. We went live right after. And I thought Owen Power played an excellent game, sans the one shift where he caused the goal. I mean, it was on him, all right? And he had a penalty before that. So he had a stretch, and he deserves some criticism for that, okay? He made a mistake. That's okay. We can criticize him objectively. But I felt like he played a great game up to that point, and people were just roasting him, whether it was on the live chat on this show, whether it was on Twitter X, wherever it may be. People were just, they can't wait to they want to be mad at him. They want to hate on him a little bit. And look, he's not Rasmus Dahlin, but he's no bum either. He's a good player. And I think he's playing you wouldn't, you're more intimate with the team. You cover him, you see all the games. I don't. But I look at a guy, and I feel like he's playing some pretty good hockey. Am I wrong? I mean, I don't think I am.
He's playing outstanding hockey. And, the goal against that you're talking about where it's, he's got to hammer it up the wall and get it out of the zone. He didn't. He's on the ice for 1:40. There's nothing left in your legs. There's nothing left in your whole body at that point on the ice, basically playing 2.5 shifts, a length of time, in that situation. So you see that play and you're like, oh man, that's awful. Then you dissect it a little bit and you're like, oh, that's why it was a total muffin puck off the board. That was easy to take. So I get that, but man, the way this guy plays defense it drives people nuts here because everybody wants a 6'5", 6'6" defenseman to hammer everybody into the wall and kill them because they're bigger than everybody, which, I get that to a point. But the way Power plays defense by the way he defends the blue line, his gap control is really strong. Guys don't blow his doors off. Nobody gets around him, period. His reach, he's got an unbelievable reach just because he is 6'5", 6'6". So think about that with the stick length, and then all he's got to do is just stick out and then just wave it around in front of a guy, and then the guy's just like, oh, all right, well, how do I get around this? There's nowhere for me to go. So then it becomes a chip up the boards or a chip up the wall. And at that point, they're giving up possession wherever they are, whether it's at the blue line or they just get in the zone. They're like, crap, I got to send it around the wall. Well, tough break because Bowen Byram's going to be hanging out over on the other side, ready to pick it off, or one of the forwards is going to get back in deep, grab the puck, and take off the other way. And that's what he's been able to do is just fend guys off, force them out of dangerous scoring areas, and push them outside and make them have to make a play where they just can't because he's too rangy and he's too good with his body positioning and all that. Now, the plays in tight, tying guys up, tying up sticks and all that stuff in around the net used to be a huge problem for him because he just, it was a struggle. That's gotten a lot better now. And there are still situations where maybe it's like, geez, get that stick out of there, like box out a guy a little stronger, do whatever. I can forgive that because he's denying every other opportunity, coming into the zone, getting across the red line, whatever it is. Guys are not getting a chance to really set up against him. And the advanced defensive numbers on him are extremely good. So I get it. The lowlights get remembered because it's very easy to highlight a situation, say like, geez, make a better play. And like that play in the Devils game, you want to see a better play, but also
it was a bad shift.
The context, you have to keep it in. The Devils, driving, pushing for a goal. They're, it's how it is. They're in desperation mode, and you want Power to make a better play there, but also like the gas tank was empty, brother. Like if he was a truck, he's stalled out somewhere, somewhere on the road, and you're like, oh, that's too bad. Like I understand it. Again, you want better, but like, what if he pitches it over the glass and then it's a power play for the next 2 minutes, and then you're like, that's not what you want either, because then it's going to be a 6-on-4 with the goalie play, all that stuff. So like, whatever. Crime of. I can't even call it a crime of passion. It's a crime of an empty gas tank, really. But yeah. Power's been fantastic this year. That pairing has been extremely good this year. It's why Lindy's comfortable running them out there 20+ minutes a night.
Yeah, 100%. We got to take a quick break. Before that, though, I want to pull this up real quick. Mike Hartle said, Pat, do you remember that Sabres song? They played it on the radio all the time. Female singer. I don't remember the era, though. I'm getting old, but why not the Sabres this year? Correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, but I don't think that was a Sabres song. I think that was the Talking Proud song. Buffalo's got a spirit, talking proud, talking proud. That was a theme. That's the only Buffalo-themed female singer that I know of. Again, somebody else mentioned earlier, maybe it was Mike himself that mentioned the Sabres Stanley Cup song. That was old, back in the French Connection days. But anyway, I don't know. I got to think about that on the break. Be right back. More with Joe Yerdon, Tage Thompson, and again, it's time, I think, to kind of move the goalposts a little bit with this team. Be right back. All right, I am back here. Special guest Joe Yerdon, Tuesday podcast. Sabres are on a roll. I'll tell you this, after the Olympics were over, obviously I was very happy to see the Americans win a gold medal. I was almost immediately after concerned that it would lead to a kind of a hangover in a way, not just for Tage, but like probably a lot of these guys coming back. They're partying their faces off. Mm-hmm. The Sabres are trying to do something they haven't done in 15 years, you know what I mean? Get to the playoffs. Tage Thompson and along with Rasmus are obviously their two best players. I was very concerned about maybe seeing a lethargic Tage. Like they may take a couple games to kind of get his legs back from under him. Not the case. Not the case. Now, Jack Eichel, I saw a stat. He's struggling a little bit for Vegas in his two games. He's pointless. He's only got like 2 shots on goal. He's a -3 or something like that. Tage has got 2 goals and 2 assists in these 3 games, which the Sabres, of course, have won all of them since the Olympic break. He's had 10 shots on net. He's locked in. Joe, he's locked in. Most people will be listening to this on Tuesday. Obviously, you will be there at the arena. They're going to honor Tage before the game for winning the gold medal. He's already said he's going to bring out Eichel. Who the hell's the other guy? Oh, Hannafin. Yep. So it's going to be a moment. Talk about Tage and the way he's just continued his play. Like there was no Olympic hangover. I thought there was going to be. He could sleep it off, I guess, better than me because I would have been fucked up for at least a week, man. I would have been playing like shit. But Tage is playing fine. Talk about what you think the vibe's going to be at the arena here on Tuesday night. What kind of reception do you see Jack Eichel getting from Sabres fans? We know the history there. I'm sure it'll settle into booing when the game starts, but what kind of reception do you think he's going to get pregame?
Yeah, I think I posted this like right after the game. I was like, man, the first Sabres home game after the Olympic break was against Vegas, and I'm like, Jack might get a standing O for like the last time in Buffalo, but
last time.
I think that'll be cushioned nicely by having Tage bring him out. You come out and do the same thing. Tage already said on Monday he was gonna do what Jack Hughes did with him in Jersey and get him out on the ice. And Tage said, this was a team effort. It wasn't just one player. And he said we don't win a gold without it being a whole team thing. And he's 100% right. Like you cannot beat Canada with a one-man effort. Like although Connor Hellebuck sure did make it a point to say that maybe it can
sure
be.
Tried.
But,
it was very Hasek-y.
Oh man, it was. Holy smokes, was it ever? But yeah, that's the easiest way for Jack to get cheered. Be right next to Tage when they do that before the game on Tuesday night. That's going to be. I mean, geez, I was I had just turned 1 year old when they won gold in 1980, so I had no memory of that going on.
I was 8.
So it's just to be able to witness that now and just be like, holy smokes, U.S. men won a gold, holy crap!
Yeah.
And now this kind of welcome back to her in a way. I mean, it's just getting back to the schedule, but these guys coming back and playing at home for the first time, it's a huge moment. I mean, we think about when Miller came back from the 2010 Olympics and it's standing ovation he got for his performance in those Olympics, and lose to Canada in OT, like that's a tough way to go down. But I mean, Tage was a huge factor in the U.S. winning, going all the way and winning, and so that's gonna be a surreal moment to have that play out. I think it's really cool what they've got with the rally towels and everything, and walking into the arena on Monday for practice, it was like, oh, okay, and it was. Lindy even said he goes that it was cool to see that because that kind of gets the blood going a little bit thinking about that. That's how the place will look in playoffs because it's going to be rally towels in the playoffs, that's for sure. And you're like, oh right, it's just another one of those things where it's like, oh right, playoffs. That's the thing that could very well happen here this year. And you're like, oh boy, and like everybody's just getting their mind right and mind wrapped around that. And this thing they're gonna have for Tage on Tuesday night is gonna be kind of like a warm up act for that.
I never thought of it that way, and you're 100% right. So, when the good times are going, you don't want them to end. You want to keep going. You want the good times to keep coming, right? So the Sabres, although I don't say they struggle, but they slowed down a little bit before the break. But all in all, I mean, this team just poured it on going into the Olympic break. Then you're off a couple weeks. I think it's fair to have some anxiety as a Sabres fan that, everything's going to get back to the way they used to be now. Like, why did this break have to come? This team's on a roll, man. Let's just keep it going. That was certainly a fear of mine. Again, Tage being one of the leaders on the team, maybe it takes him a while to get going. They come back from a break. You're like, oh, shit, man. 3 in a row on the road, including Tampa. Mm-hmm. Oof. Well, I was like, hey, 3 out of 6 I'll take. 4 out of 6 I'll be happy. I did not expect them to go 3-0, 3 regulation wins, 6 points. And I'm telling you, shout out Sunny Reds, okay? Because I went to their bar Saturday night with a few buddies of mine. Mm-hmm. We're watching the game. I almost couldn't believe what I was watching. I legitimately couldn't even believe what I was watching. They went to Tampa, the top seed in the Atlantic Division, one of the best teams in the NHL, and they embarrassed them. I mean, it was 4-0, it was 5-0. I'm like, what is going on here, man? I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because I kind of got a segment for that, but just talk about these last 3 games and the Sabres responding in a big way coming off this break. I almost can't believe it.
Yeah, it's
should believe it, but
right. Well, I think that was the kind of doubt that was cast by the way those last few games before break went. Mm-hmm. It was another trip to Florida, a close one with the Panthers, and you're like, okay, all right, get a win. You're like, okay, that's good. And then the Tampa game where they had it in the bag, and then Tampa ties it with 20 seconds, wins it in OT.
Yeah,
and that's one that probably stings them a lot. Like you look back and you're like, that can't lose that game. Can't lose that game. And then, they played maybe their worst game in a couple of months against Pittsburgh at home. And you're just like, oh boy, okay.
Yeah.
Or it was at home.
It was. Yep.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute. No, but not a great game. And you're like, boy, that's a heck of a way to go on vacation for the next couple of weeks for most of those guys, because it's like that's a tough one to chew on. And I was like, let's see how they come back, because you get time to let that one fester and get annoyed about. And the Tampa game on top of that, you're just like, nah, this sucks. Like you can't be happy with either of those outcomes. Maybe there's a moral victory with getting a point in Tampa, but you're still like, that should have been 2 points.
Right.
Should have been 2 points for us, none for them. And, you're like, all right, let's see what happens out of the break, because that's not a fun schedule coming out, because it's Jersey, who still plays tough, and then Florida again down there, and you're like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And then to just roll out 3-0 and win the way they did. And, Tage makes that big play to Krebs in the Jersey game, which Tage, very funny today. He was asked, I think Paul Hamilton asked him, he was like, were you kind of fatigued coming back? And Tage just smiles. He goes, yeah, I was. He's like, I didn't have my legs until maybe the Tampa game. He didn't have his wind back and his legs back in full until the Tampa game. And I'm like, yeah, it's about right. I mean, he's probably still playing hungover in the Jersey game for crying out loud. But
I'm sure he was. At least he was functionally hungover. I'm quite sure.
But like the guy whose pocket he picks on that play was Jack Hughes. So hey, you know what? It's even draw there. That's fine. But to go 3-0 coming out of the break and to reestablish, like, yep, those losses are behind us. Forget it. We're moving on. That sort of mindset has been with this team all season long. Ever since things got turned around, they've just been like, whatever, next game, let's go, which is very kind of old Belichickian of it, where it's like, we're on to the next one. People got, became a meme and people made fun of Belichick for doing that stuff with the Patriots, but it was like, it's kind of the right mindset, like, hey, we won.
Sure.
Cool. What's the next game? Like, let's just move on. Because the thing this team's been so guilty of in the past is getting high on their own supply after a win or stringing a couple wins together and being like, nobody can beat us. We're great. Look at us. You love the confidence, but also like it's ill-gotten confidence. Now this team doesn't get like that. They're just they don't function that way at all. And it's just kind of like, all right, whatever, next game, let's do it. They're enjoying the moment. Don't get it wrong. They're not robots and just saying, head down and just like, nope, next game, let's go. They're excited about all this and they're having a ton of fun and they love being around each other. Like this is as good a group together as I've seen in a room ever, honestly. And this, it's a lot of bad teams, so it's a low bar to clear. But at the same point, like these guys are just like all in together, and that's not something we've seen much of. Even teams a couple years ago that the team that was just missed the playoffs, they weren't quite that tight together. Like there was still some people like kind of playing individual hockey, and you're just like, all right, like whatever, it works. Like you don't question it. You're just like, that's fine. Not this group, man. Like this group is just all in together. Every guy, every position. There's no snark. There's no sort of kind of bitter competition between guys or any of that stuff. Everybody's all in on this, and that's says a lot about the guys they've brought in and the leadership group for getting it to a point where everybody can just enjoy playing hockey together.
The vibes are good in the locker room for good reason. Various hockey sites have the Sabres, I've seen as high as 97% now to make the playoffs. Evolving Hockey had them at 97%. The lowest I saw was moneypuck.com. And even that was 88.4%. Dude, this is the first time in 16 years that this team goes into March, I should say, in a playoff spot. 16 years, man. 13 points back they were last year. The Sabres were 13 points back of a playoff spot 1 year ago. They were toast. They were done. Done. Before we even get to the Shamrock run in the first weekend of March, the Sabres were toast. The year before that, they were 10 points back of a playoff. So these last 2 years, we get to this time of year, and there's nothing else to talk about except the Sabres stink and Bill's free agency. This is just so different right now. Kind of discuss the vibe amongst the fans. And let me elaborate for you here. The Sabres, they're literally 23 points better this year than they were last year. That's insanity. Mm-hmm. What I mean by the vibe with the fans is you're out at the bar, you're going wherever, whatever watering hole that you're hanging out at, the supermarket, doesn't matter, man. Your friends, people who know, recognize you from hockey, they talk to you about the Sabres, and they probably, whenever they bring up the Sabres to you over the years, last handful of years, they probably change their tone, like almost like a sympathetic type tone that they'll speak with you with because you're there at the arena every day, you're covering this team, and they're kind of in a train wreck. And describe the vibe now when fans talk to you. I'm excited right now to talk to you about Sabres. I can't tell you how many times we used to have to do drafts and talk Bills and Lions, whatever, to fill episodes because I just couldn't stomach talking about this team. I couldn't wait all day long. I've been looking forward to talking to you, and I've still got more things that I want to get to. But just like the vibe with the fans now, the ones that you interact, I'm sure it's a much different experience this year than it's been at least recently, right?
Oh, it's night and day, which, in my shoes, that's a huge adjustment as well. Seeing fans being excited about the team and, wrapping their head around the I keep saying possibility because you just never know. You never know what'll happen. And
Sure.
the East is a murder gauntlet. So
It's not over yet.
it's not over yet, but everything's lining up for them to be a playoff team. And, people are, have been trying to wrap their heads around that probably about the last month. But after coming back and, you win those 3 in a row in Florida, I mean, my emails and phone have been blowing up here with, people reaching out, wanting to talk about the Sabres. And that usually only happens when a coach is fired or there's a big trade or, the GM gets fired. People are like, what the hell's going on over there? Because that's usually like the first question is, what's wrong with this team? Now it's like, what happened? Like, this is incredible. I talk with folks in Montreal and they're just like, holy cow, like, I don't know if I want Montreal to deal with them in the playoffs. Like, fair. And I don't know that Buffalo would want to deal with Montreal in the playoffs. That would be a psycho circus of a series. But the fact that you get to talk about it and the chance that it very well could happen is like, yep, I might have to get the oil changes ready for the car to drive back and forth to Quebec, But it's, when you talk to the fans, it's a lot of, I know people meme the like surrender Cobra when, the team, they're just like, oh no, it's this, except it's like, oh my God, we're going to make the playoffs. It's a different kind of thing where, fans are still like just trying to wrap their head around it. And they're just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do because it's been over a decade. I mean, it's almost a decade and a half of no playoffs. I mean, think about where you were in 2011, Pat. I wasn't even in Buffalo yet. Like, I was still back in Albany. I was, running the NBC website and, covering Sabres Flyers remotely in the playoffs. It was just kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool. Ryan Miller. Hey, this is fun. And, getting to know the the Bills backers bar in Albany because they wanted to hang out and watch Sabres playoff games. Like, I was like, hey, that's a good idea. That's cool. Yeah. He's like, yeah, Sabres are usually in the playoffs. This will be a good thing. No, it was the last time it ever happened. That was 2011. And,
I was binge drinking all the time in 2011, man. I don't remember a lot of 2011. Here's what I think about the Sabres right now, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Up until this point, I mentioned this briefly to you before we started the show as well. Up until now, if you would tell me in November that the Buffalo Sabres, if you would have told me December 7th or December 8th before they played Calgary, okay, the Sabres are going to make the playoffs. They were 11-14-2 after that game. Mm-hmm. The Buffalo Sabres are going to make the playoffs. They're going to end the drought, but they're going to get swept up by Montreal, Detroit, Tampa. Who gives a shit who it is? But they're going to make the playoffs. But they're going to get swept and they're going to get beat handily in every game. I would have been like, sign me up. I will take it. The drought ends. I can have at least 1 or 2 parties in the plaza. The stigma of not making the playoffs is gone. Maybe guys around the league will stop putting Buffalo on every no trade clause. You know what I mean? Things are kind of trending up. I will take that in a second. As we sit here today, I don't feel that way anymore because this team has looked so good for a sustained period of time. Good star players, good contributing players. The goaltending has been really good. Mm-hmm. I think this is a team, I'm moving the goalposts now. Just making the playoffs, when I reflect, I'll be happy no matter what. But now I'm going in saying, hey, the Sabres can get into the playoffs. Why can't they win a round? Why can't they win 2 rounds? There's nobody in the Eastern Conference where I'm like, yeah, this is the 1980 U.S. team against the Russians kind of situation. You know what I mean? I feel like the Sabres can match up relatively well against anybody. So I'm ready for the goalposts to move. Not making the playoffs alone is I can see more than that now in the near future with this team. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's funny thinking back. It was, obviously it was before the Olympic break, and I forget after which game it was, but we were talking with Alex Tuck afterwards, and he mentioned, like, we're here to win. We're here to, we don't just want to make the playoffs. We want to win a Stanley Cup. And I was like,
no.
Yeah. What? Whoa, hey, hang on, buddy. Like, what? And we kind of smiled at that. It's like, boy, what if he's, what if Alex ends up getting traded? This is, now, mind you, this is, a few weeks ago, and you're kind of being a little bit morbid about it, being like, yeah, what if he sets the table like that, then he gets traded because he's like, I ain't signing here. Good luck, boys. I set the table for you. Have fun. Like, obviously that wasn't the case. He's all bought in. I mean, he's I mean, he doesn't have the extended contract yet, but like, he's bought in with this group to help them win.
Yeah.
But to have a guy in the room say, like, no, we just don't want to just get there. We want to win the Stanley Cup. It was like, oh.
And it felt authentic, right?
Yeah.
And saying it.
It was surprising to hear it because, I mean, again, like, that's very new talk here, but to have that mindset coming from a leader where it's like, yeah, no, we're not just going to be satisfied getting in. We want to win. We want to win it all. We want to win the cup. And it's like, and then you start running through your head. You're like, well, that's crazy. Like, they're not going to win the cup, are they? And then you're like, well, I mean, playoffs, you get in. Anything can happen in the playoffs. And I think the East is tight enough that anything can happen. Literally anything can shake loose because everybody is good and everybody's going to be very tightly matched. And, that might cause some heart attacks through Buffalo seeing them in the playoffs. But like, if they get there and they're there and they're playing the way they do, there's no reason why they can't just win one round or two rounds. There's no reason why they can't make it to the East Final right away. Like, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Now, it'll be insanely difficult, but the playoffs are difficult. You're going to have probably Tampa and Carolina sitting at the top of the heap, and they're both really good teams, but they're both beatable teams. Buffalo can run with Carolina. Like, Carolina can't win games in Buffalo. Buffalo can't win games in Carolina. That's as even as it gets. Tampa, I mean, they just took Tampa around the woodshed. We'll see what happens when they play each other again Sunday.
Probably not going to be that easy on Sunday.
Incredible game, by the way, which, Buffalo will be on the second of a back-to-back, and Tampa will be coming in fresh. So, tables kind of turn a little. Well, it'll be kind of the same, except, just roles reversed. Anyways, point being that, like, everybody can hang with everybody, and any outcome that comes out of this, I know, like, if you have like a wild card team beat a top seed, yeah, that's an upset. But also, it's like, I don't know, man. They've been everybody in the East has been battle testing each other all season long, and now you've got teams that are below the playoff spots roaring up the standings to get into the fight. You've got Ottawa there, you've got Columbus jumping into the fight. Now it's like those teams that might have thought, like, man, this is hard. We're in a wild card spot, but at least we got some cushion. No, you don't. You've got Washington, you've got Ottawa, you've got Columbus all lurking right below you saying, like, if you guys slip up, we're taking that spot away from you. And, like, that's the motivation all of these teams need, is that if they slip up for a game or two, they're going to get knocked down one or two spots in the standings probably because nobody else loses. Nobody else loses in the East, and you string together 2 or 3 losses in a row, you're suddenly going to be finding yourself in like a monkey knife fight trying to stay alive in international waters. It's crazy.
I'm, as you say that, I was just taking a quick look at the scores. You're not wrong. Like, Detroit beat Nashville today 4-2 on Monday. Columbus beat the Rangers in overtime 5-4, so 2 points for Columbus. The Rangers don't really matter. A quick shout out, by the way, in the live. My buddy Student Body Right from Duchamp. He said, Pat, we got to be done booing Eichel at least for one evening. No. All right, well, he obviously just came in a little bit late. No, they're going to boo the shit out of him, but they're going to cheer him before the puck drops. Once that puck drops, all bets are off. I think they're going to get in the Jack zone, but they're certainly going to give him the moment that he deserves. We just talked about that a few minutes ago. I mentioned goalies, too. And here's the thing, Joe. So when the Bills broke the 17-year drought, they were a good team. I didn't think they were a great team, and it was one of my favorite sports moments of my life to this day because it happened on New Year's Eve, and I was with a bunch of family. The Bills win. Not only the Bills winning in Miami, but it was more the Bengals helping them out and being in Baltimore on that improbable 4th and 16 play. Anyway, the Bills get to the playoff. I completely felt like, hey, they're playing with house money. Not that Jacksonville was some kind of juggernaut,
Right.
but it's like I didn't really have expectations for the Bills. The Bills could have lost that game 40-0, and I would have been like, oh, well, you broke the drought. I still think I will ultimately feel that way, even if the Sabres were one and done in the playoffs and didn't look that impressive. But the difference between the 2017 Bills and the 2025-26 Sabres right now, at least anyway, is I just think the talent discrepancy is not the same. Like, I don't think the Bills were as good as other teams in the AFC playoffs. I think the Sabres are right there with the cream of the crop in the Eastern Conference. That's the difference for me. And you kind of you hit on that, right? It's not like this big talent gap, like everything's got to fall right for the Sabres to win a series, you know?
Yeah, they're not gonna need I mean, easy to say this with 20 whatever games to go. I don't think they're gonna need help from others to get into the postseason. Like that Bills team did. Granted, that Bills team was good. It was filled with drama that entire season.
Sure.
Obviously, like there was a lot of slip ups and a lot of things where it was just like, figure it out, you idiots. Like, you have a good team. Stop trying to ruin it. Stop trying to ruin it. Whereas with this Sabres team, it was like they got all like the bad stuff out of the way early. I mean, this team was dead last in the East at some point. And now, granted, it's not like a 2019 Blues run yet where, that Blues team that year was last in the West in
Won the cup, right?
January, and then went on to win the cup. But like this Sabres team was last in the East at some point. I forget if it was like the end of October or in November.
Joe, I almost launched a gag for Gavin campaign. I was ready to gag for Gavin McKenna. I'm not joking. I was like literally ready to start putting up graphics for that.
I think you had even sent me some messages then that started with like, these effing guys. Like,
Yeah.
It was just like, figure it out. Like, this is stupid. But I mean, you're at a point now with this team where it's like playoffs seem, again, nothing's guaranteed, but like the stars are aligning for this to be like basically like nobody's gonna have to sweat out a playoff spot here as as things go along. I hope this is a video or audio that comes back to haunt like in a couple of weeks when it's like, oh boy, they lost 7.
Pat and Joe fucked everything up.
Yeah, right. So, but I mean, they're in a place right now where it's like, hey, if they just play steady and do their thing, they're fine. Like, they're gonna make the playoffs, and obviously they're in a spot where they very well could have home ice in the first round. If things go right, they could absolutely finish second in the division. Because I don't know if Montreal can keep it going the way they are. I don't know if Detroit's going to jump up. Is Boston going to surge up, and try to steal something here? Like, any of these things could happen, but also like nobody has any idea because we haven't had a playoff race like this in quite a few years where it feels like the top 8, 9 are kind of set, but like the top 8 feels almost done, even though nothing's done. Where you think any arrangement of these teams makes a lot of sense. And it's just a matter of like maybe figuring out the last wild card or two. And even that, like the first wild card spot feels like pretty cozy right now. Like, I think you could almost state, any of the teams in the Atlantic any of the teams in the Atlantic can make a claim on that and be cool. But I mean, this is this Sabres team though is, I mean, if you're comparing this to the Bills team that broke the drought, this team is way better than that Bills team was.
Sure, and that's funny we say that. So, buddies over at the Rock Pile Report, one of my favorite podcasts. OGs, by the way, they've been doing this longer than I have, and there's not a lot of podcasts out there that have been around longer than this one. But anyway, they compare the droughts. Says Bills drought. Had my first kiss, lost my virginity, got married, got divorced. Sabres drought. Married, divorced, remarried. So there you go. There's life during Buffalo drought. So I mentioned goaltending, Joe. I had Chris Ostrander on, good buddy, last week. Before they played any games, coming off the break. And one of the things he said was the biggest key to the Sabres not falling off and, becoming a playoff team is the goaltending holding up. It's been really good.
Yeah.
But will it hold up? Well, 3 games so far, the answer is yes. I saw a stat from JFresh, that site on Twitter. Goals saved above expected. As of March 1st, Sabres are 4th best in the NHL, man. 4th best. Only the Islanders, Washington, and Colorado have been better. Why don't you talk about the goaltending holding up for the Sabres and just playing really good this year? I've heard some people say that Alex Lyon may be one of the best unrestricted free agent signings, not just for the Sabres, but of any team in the NHL this past summer. He's kind of been that important. And now UPL certainly seems to be rounding in to the type of goaltender that we want him to be. This goaltending, to me, other than Matthias Samuelsson, because that's the biggest surprise for me. We'll talk about him in a second. But I think the way the goaltending's been has been one of my favorite, most pleasant surprises for this team this season.
Yeah, it's the way Alex has played this year in goal is just outstanding. I mean, even early on in the season when they weren't getting the wins, Lyon was still playing really good. Yeah. And it was just always like it was like classic Sabres. Like, well, they got the goaltending. They're just needing stinking goals to help out the goalie. But Lyon's doing his job, so help the guy out. And now they're helping him out a lot. And Lyon is still playing that same steady, aggressive, like veteran who doesn't give a shit style play. He cares a lot, but also like he's such a like a mensch when it comes to how he handles playing goal that it's really interesting. I mean, he's a fascinating character.
Sure.
He's a guy that I think in all my time here in Buffalo, he might be one of the most interesting guys I've ever talked to. And like, you can lose time like crazy in the locker room, because you might have a thought of like, well, I got to talk to like these 3 or 4 guys. And if you get talking to Alex, forget it. You're only talking to Alex, because he's interesting. He's thoughtful. And he talks it out like a regular dude, but also like, he plays goals. So like there's a screw loose in there somewhere. And you're just like, you're out there, man, but also like I'm on the same level with you. So like I'm also out there. Like you get a little introspective with yourself. But the way he plays goal is just, very veteran. Like, I got a job to do and my job is to stop the puck, and damn it, I'm going to do that. And you can always appreciate a goalie who has that kind of mindset. And, he defends his crease, has no problem shoving guys out of there, just, mixing it up, probably talking somebody's ear off the whole way, sending them out of there. But with Luukkonen, I mean, it was a tougher start to the year, and obviously the injury stuff got in the way. Like, he didn't get to have a normal training camp. He didn't get to have any of that. But once he settled in, and it took him a little bit to settle in, and obviously there was some other injury stuff that happened, but when he settled in and he's locked in, man, and the sort of relationship he and Lyon have working with each other here, they're not working against each other.
Right.
That's an important part of having a harmonious goaltending tandem or trio in this case. These guys are all working with each other. They're not working against each other. And yeah, they're competing for net time, but like with this schedule, nobody has to worry about it. Everybody's going to get games. Like, one guy is not going to play 90% of the games down the stretch here. That shit is not going to happen. Yeah. I can tell you that right now. When there's games, you got 3 and 4 a bunch of the times, everybody's playing. So, and to have everybody clicking and everybody playing well, it takes a lot off of everybody's minds to not have to worry about the goaltending, because so many times in the past you could see that like that relationship between like defensemen and goalies was a little strained because everybody wasn't on the same page.
Yeah.
Everybody's on the same page now. Everybody gets it. And the guys in front of the goalies are taking care of a lot of business. and the goalies are taking care of what comes into their office. So as long as everybody's following their own script here and handling what they've got to handle, everything's going to go great. And that's what's happened here.
As a Sabres fan who's old, it reminds me a little bit of the Bob Solvay, Don Edwards tandem back in the day for the Sabres. I didn't feel any more or less confident with either one of them in net. I felt equally good about both of them. They were both good. I think they won, I think it's the William Jennings trophy, I think maybe it used to be or something like that, where the best goals against average or something like that. Anyway, they were a tandem that worked together. There was not a number one or a number two. They were kind of 1A, 1B, and you could go to either guy in any situation, and they both were pretty good. Let's over this past weekend, a good friend of mine I've known forever, my buddy Frank, sends me I don't know what the hell he was thinking, sending me a message at freaking 2 o'clock in the morning, but I woke up Sunday morning to the message. Basically, and I'm sure you've heard this question asked, I'm sure you've been asked this too. Based on this roster, how they look now, the moves that were made, everything on paper, does Kevin Adams deserve Executive of the Year? Does he deserve to be in the conversation for Executive of the Year? My quick answer to that is not really. He did have a lot to do with the pay. You can't take that away from him, the moves that were made, but you could also say, well, the leadership, there was something that this team didn't believe in with Kevin Adams as GM, because it's just indisputable that literally they're 11, 14, and 2. Word starts to leak out that Kevin Adams might be gone by the end of that road trip. They win their last 3, and they have been an absolute wagon ever since. Maybe it's a coincidence on some levels, but it can't be a complete coincidence. It's like that was a breath of fresh air that locker room needed. So point is this. I'm not even going to ask you that again, because I know you're kind of in line with me with that. But based on what he did with this roster, is Kevin Adams going to end up getting another high-ranking front office hockey job? Like, if this team stayed in the shits all year, I think he was done, like in a kind of high-leverage type role. But based on the Sabres maybe making the playoffs and people looking and saying, well, he put this team together, is Kevin Adams, do you think he's going to get another crack at the piñata when it comes to a high-level kind of executive position in the league again?
I'm not one to say never when it comes to this kind of stuff, because weirder things happen. I mean,
sure,
we saw Ralph Kruger get a second coaching job. We never
That's
thought
fair.
that would happen. Granted, that was the Sabres.
Very true.
Take that with the grain of salt it deserves. But and this is going to sound snarky, but a team that hires him, are they going to give him 5 to 6 years to get it in order? Will any team give a GM 5 or 6 years to get a shop in order to make sure that it works out? And granted, he didn't draft Darlene. He didn't trade for Tage Thompson. He didn't, a lot of the first blocks of the foundation of this team were built under Jason Botterill. And granted, Darlene was a number 1 pick. That's an easy pick to make. Thompson wasn't Bots' first choice in trading Ryan O'Reilly. And like that trade almost got Botterill fired based on how it worked out, with O'Reilly going to St. Louis, the Blues winning a cup instantaneously, and O'Reilly winning the Conn Smythe as the MVP in the playoffs. So like those things weren't easy, and it took Tage a few years to come around, and it took Don Granato to kind of bring him out of that and have confidence in him to bring his game out and turn him into an annual 40-goal guy. Like that says a lot more about Don than I think it does about even Jason Botterill or even Kevin Adams. But it's with other parts of this roster, yeah, Kevin deserves a ton of credit for that, for either drafting some of these guys or adding them the ways that he did. But I think you can microscope analyze how this team was built and fraction out different things and say like, okay, well, he got this guy. And it's like, well, he got this guy, but also XYZ things happened that weren't great and could be or are still issues with the team, or, with the whole scope of the organization now. He makes the trade to get Ryan McLeod, which was a good trade. We traded like one of his earliest draft picks in Matt Savoy to get him. And like Savoy hasn't played great in Edmonton, so you're just like, ha Edmonton. But you're like, the Sabres were going to make that guy one of their top guys. Like if that guy doesn't pan out, I mean, again, this is
Right.
putting a lot of stuff that didn't happen and asking, well, what if it happened? You could play that game forever, and that's a stupid game to play. Like, well, what if they kept that guy? I don't know, man. Like, maybe monkeys start flying. I don't know. Like, it changes the whole evolution scope of the world. I don't know, but like, for the way it's worked out this year and the way this team is now, a lot of those moves still are attached to Kevin. It's hiring Lindy Ruff. It's, keeping, I mean, it was and may still be like an issue with a lot of fans, keeping the assistant coaches on and keeping that continuity with the coaching staff. So it's not your, changing micro systems and different things and the way things go. You're just like, no, this is good. We're okay with this. Let's stick with it, because changing up all the voices doesn't work. And with the players, making sure to get Josh Doan in that trade for JJ, a lot of these little things where it's like, that was the right move. That was the right call. And Kevin deserves that kind of credit. But it is kind of cruelly ironic that you can make a very strong case for him as an executive of the year, even though he was fired in November.
It's crazy.
Which is insane, because the only image I have in my head is Ben Stiller's White Goodman in Dodgeball, sitting on the couch at the end of the movie, fucking Chuck Norris. And like, that's Kevin sitting there just going, and he's not going to get mad. I mean, he hired Yarmo, so you can't get mad about Yarmo. But like, Yarmo hasn't pulled any strings with this other than signing Doan to a great extension. We're going to find out what Yarmo is made of by the end of the week. But, if you're Adams, you're just sitting there just like, all I did was put a playoff team together. What else could I have done? But, by that point, I think that's when you say like, well, Kevin was probably pretty fortunate to still have a job even going into this season. Never mind going into last season or the season before it even.
Yeah. So maybe somebody's up real late Monday. Maybe they're having themselves a night or something and they're listening to this. They don't get up early Tuesday. They're not listening to this around lunchtime. You just said it. There might be a move by the time people listen to this, for all we know. Trade deadline is Friday. It's 3 p.m. I think it's pretty much, well, I don't want to say accepted because we don't know how it's going to play out, but we would not be surprised if the Sabres add a defenseman. I think we can all agree on that. Who it is, at what level, who knows? But I think they're going to add to the blue line, and I'm sure you do too, Al. I wanted to ask you about, because you were at practice, and I know Lindy talked about him a little, Kulich.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this was Tuesday, he's going to get tested, and they're going to see where he's at. Like if he's going to be able to rejoin the team, or if he's just going to continue to maybe ramp up the condition or something like that. You can explain that better than I can. But let's say it's the best case scenario, and the test goes as good as you could hope for. I mean, that's a guy who's a good hockey player, and he's done some good things with this team, and he's in the mix. If Kulich can go, does that maybe lessen Yarmo's desire to go make a significant trade for, say, a top 9 guy because you got Kulich coming back? Or does the health of him, in your opinion, have nothing really to do with what Yarmo may or may not do with forwards by Friday at 3 p.m.?
I think it has to be in his mind. Like if they get a report that says that he's going to be able to come back before the end of the season, mm-hmm. I think that's I think that changes how you approach things forward wise at the deadline, simply because Kulich's a guy that would play in the top 6. And certainly if I'm Jack Quinn, I'd probably be a little nervous about Kulich coming back, because he might be the guy that, maybe winds up out of the line, because you got to put a guy like that somewhere in the line. Now, I say this knowing full well that Jack has earned a ton of respect from Lindy this season for the work that he's put in off the ice in the off season. I know fans, if you talked about whipping boys before Owen Power, Jack Quinn's the other guy.
For sure.
And, Jack's produced here and there. I think a lot of the visuals of how Jack plays hockey makes people like lose their cool, because a lot of times he looks like he's too busy. He's maybe moving a little too much. The puck jumps off his stick, and people are just like, just calm down, settle down. And I think that does lead to turnovers. But I mean, like, he had like a few games in a row where he was piling up assists, and then he's on the first power play, and everybody's like, "What the hell? How does this happen?" And it's like, well, he's making things happen. Like that's how that happens. It's sometimes Lindy's changes, like with power play and things like that, are simply because points are getting on the board. Like that's all it takes. Think about it. Kulich was playing well last season, but he wasn't getting goals and he wasn't getting assists, and it was getting frustrating. Like, Lindy was just like, you got to put the puck in that. Like, you got to put points on the board to be able to, to position. I think that also applied to like Zach Benson too, or it's like, you got to score. Like, you got to do stuff. You got to add to the point totals here. But certainly if Kulich ends up getting the okay from the doctors, because again, it's a blood clot. You don't know.
Right.
No idea like how that's going to play out. It's not like a broken bone or a ligament or anything like that where the timetable is set almost in stone. Blood clot is just like, is it still there? It is. Well, forget it. Is it gone? Okay. Well, treatment continues. You can ramp up, and then we'll see how things go from there. Like, that's kind of how that goes. That's a very amateur way to look at it. But if he's a guy that could come back before the end of the season, I mean, I would imagine that changes. I don't know if it drastically changes how you approach it, but I think you have to look at it as like, he's a guy who's not there, and we don't know if he'll be there, and you plan accordingly. Your trade deadline, your board accordingly to that. And if he comes back, then it's like, okay, now we got a lot of depth. Let's figure out how we're going to do the lineup, and you go from there. Like, that's a bridge you cross when it's there, kind of.
Yeah, and you want to have. Look, I think they're going to make a trade for a forward regardless, and whether Kulich's back or not this season, I don't know that I would be resting too easy if I'm Jack Quinn. Mm-hmm. That said, look, guys get hurt all the time. You got to have that depth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's almost unrealistic to say, what have the Sabres got here? 22 games left? Sabres got 22 games left. It's almost unrealistic to say nobody's going to miss time from any of the top four lines because of injury. Guys are going to get dinged up. Last question here, I'm going to let you go. I think this is a big week. So you got Vegas coming here on Tuesday night tonight for most people listening to this show. Angry, probably. They've lost 2 in a row. I'm sure they're looking to get things right here. Pittsburgh on the road Thursday. Sabres played like shit against them at home before the break. Pittsburgh's, kind of down, of course. No Sydney right now, but still. And then they start a 5-game homestand, including back-to-back this weekend. They got Nashville Saturday, Tampa on Sunday, which, by the way, Sabres pretty cool chance to get out to the arena and have yourself a nice Sabres weekend. But anyway, again, Vegas, Pittsburgh, 5 in a row at home. We keep saying if because we're operating with an overabundance, not an overabundance, a semi-abundance of caution right now. Mm-hmm. I feel like if this team, though, could go, say, if they could stack up 9 to 10 points of these next 14 during these 7 games, I almost feel like we could remove that if from that. Like, if they get 10 of these next 14 points, they'll be down to 15 games, and they will have at least this amount of lead in the wild card, if not more. I feel like they could put their stamp on making the playoffs by having a really nice stand here. Like I said, 5 of their next 6 at home. And they may good at home, too. So, an opportunity to really put a stamp on making the playoffs. Then we can start thinking about positioning. Because right now, all I care about is getting in right now. I still do. I would sign up today for the wild card 2 spot right now in this moment. I would sign that contract right now. But if they play well for these next 7 games, now I'm starting to think about, they can finish second in the division. Maybe even win the division, but they can finish second in the division. And that's why I'm going to be looking at it, right?
Yeah, it's the schedule. They've got one of the harsher closing schedules among the playoff teams. I mean, they still have to play Tampa twice. They're playing Vegas twice.
Yeah, that's tough. That's 4 right there.
San Jose twice, which San Jose is a team pushing for the playoffs, and they've got a psycho freak phenomenon in Macklin Celebrini. That dude is unreal. And now they're getting
And now the hot take alarm goes off. Waited the whole show for that, man.
yeah, it's not Macklin Celebrini is a freak superstar. Hot take, no. But now they're getting other great play from their other young stars like Michael Misa, who they just drafted. Will Smith has been awesome for them. So like Sharks are going to be a really fun. They already are a really fun team, but they're going to be even more fun as the years go on. They've got like sort of that Sabres from a few years ago vibe where it's like really exciting young stars. Like if they could figure it out, like they could be really nasty soon. But like a lot of these other games, like these are games against teams that are directly either in the playoffs or competing with them to get up and down the ladder. Detroit, Boston, the Islanders, Ottawa, Washington, like these Columbus is lurking there late in the season, like, and they got to end the season at home against Dallas. Like, okay. Like here's a team that could be a cup final team this year. They're your last game of the season. Have fun, boys. But like, Seattle's a playoff team too. So like this is not an easy run. Like at all. And like any team that gets to the playoffs earns it. That goes without saying. But boy, oh boy. I mean, this is gonna be tough.
I feel 3% less confident now as I'm gazing at the schedule while you're going through it. And I'm like, there's not, I mean, look, in hockey, there's not really many gimmies, period, in hockey. But yeah, you're looking at the schedule, and there's not many teams that are like buried, pretty much in the playoff race here. Kind of makes that I can't even see Pittsburgh's right in it too, man.
Pittsburgh's right. The Rangers might be the weakest team left on their schedule, and they don't see them until the fourth to last game of the year in April. So like, Nashville's in a playoff race. Like, Tampa's the top of the division. Sharks are
in Chicago. They got those. Chicago and the Rangers, 2 of the last 4 games. So if we're in good, I'm trying to get confidence back here. Yeah. Tough schedule, but Chicago and the Rangers are 2 matchups that I like in the last 4 games. If you got to make sure you get at least 1 or 2 more wins.
And honestly, by that time of the year, that point of year in the schedule, I mean, maybe you're hoping that one of those is a clincher for the playoffs. Maybe,
sure.
Hey, if things go right and this team just continues to play this way. I can't even say like stay hot because they've been staying hot since November. So maybe this is just what they are. But if they play like this for the rest of the way, maybe you're thinking like, okay, have something locked up so that, maybe those last few home games are just like kind of parties in the arena for everybody gearing up to get their playoff mentalities right for those games,
Yeah, and in fairness too, we're both saying, and you're right, the Sabres got a tough look here at the end. But from top to bottom, the Eastern Conference is pretty tough period. So like a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other. So there's going to be tough games for a lot of them. I'm calling my shot here as we end the show. The Sabres are going to clinch a playoff spot on Monday, April 6th against Tampa Bay at home. The Sabres will need to get 1 point to get into the playoffs.
Okay.
And they're going to. When's Easter in 2026?
That's very specific. That is a very specific way to.
It's Dingus Day, so Buffalo will be inebriated, and the Sabres are going to clinch the playoffs on April 6th. There you go.
The drunkest city in the United States gets even drunker.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think? Man, Dingus Day's enough for people to party. You throw in the Sabres, woo. It's going to be wild.
What a day that is. Day drinking into night drinking.
I love day drinking into night drinking. When day drinking turns into night drinking, it's the best. I'm too old to do night drinking anymore. Like right now, if you called me, well, that's unrealistically late, but even if it was 8:30, you say, yo, Pat, you want to go grab a beer? I'd be like, what are you, crazy? It's almost 9 o'clock. Now, if you and I went out at 2 o'clock to a pub and started putting some pints back, we might be out to 11, 12 o'clock at night. I can handle that. But I can't go out at 9 o'clock. I got to go out during the day. Day drinking could turn into night drinking. I can't start with night drinking, though, anymore. I'm too old for that shit.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's, if we start at 2 and we go to 11, I'm having a really rough next 3 days. I'll tell you.
Yeah. Oh. I didn't say it was going to be easy the next day. I'm just saying I can do it. I'm willing to pay that price if we start. All right, we're gonna put a bow on this, man. This was some. I'm not just saying it too. This was fun, man. God, it feels good to. Well, first of all, it always feels good to have Joe on the show, but to be able to talk about the Sabres in such a positive light. This might be the most positive from start to end Sabres podcast I think I've ever had. Because I always got that skepticism built inside of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even talking Owen Power Up on this show. The worst I said about Jack Quinn is maybe he shouldn't be resting so easy. I mean, kind of feel like this team's changed me a little bit. I love to see it, man. I love to see it. Make sure you check Joe out all over the place, man. If it's hockey, it's media, you're gonna find Joe for sure. At Joe Yerdon, of course, on Twitter. That plus the Soul tab, was it period social for Blue Sky?
Yeah, Blue Sky. Yeah, Blue Sky. Yeah, if you just look up my name on Blue Sky.
Look up Joe Yerdon, man.
I don't think there's too many other ones on there.
Yeah, WGR, No to Hockey, AP stuff, you name it. Joe's all over the place. Does an incredible job. One of my best friends in the media, and this was a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you, dude.
Hey, always a treat to come on and talk to you, especially when an unbelievably delightfully positive Sabres.
I know. I'm still feel a little bit weird about it. All right. Big thanks, Joe Yerdon. Thank you to everybody for watching, for listening. I always appreciate you. Matt Warren, SB Nation, comes on the show, joining me tomorrow. We're going to talk about Bill's positional needs that are not wide receiver. We're going to figure out some needs and some solutions as well. So talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much.